Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Perth Roundtable. Today we're going to be talking about the differences that we find between coaching and programming. So, of course, when we work with our athletes, obviously we are providing them with a program or a plan that they're going to follow, and that will lead to adaptations. But there's so much more to that during the coaching process that allows them to get to that point either faster or end up with a better outcome. So I'll pass it to you guys. What do you guys think is the major differences between coaching and programming?
You go.
Okay. So I think, it depends obviously on who's in front of you, right? When we're looking at coaching and programming at the same time. So a lot of it's going to be the communication skills you have with a particular person, how you go about that, the route that you take in communicating with that person, whether it's someone that, you need to be a bit more empathetic for, or someone that just needs a gas up or, and then when we talk about technical things, there's obviously going to be some sort of technical feedback that we provide someone. All right, but we can't. I think there's a line that we need to draw so we don't go over that too frequently and just start having the athlete overthinking. And I think as a coach, we need to understand that as well. And as athletes need to understand that too, that we're trying to piece together the puzzle when it comes to technical feedback without trying to put it all together in one go. So we take kind of steps in doing that, right? And that's the same as someone's program. Like we obviously, when we write a program for someone, we're writing what we see is in front of us and how we see someone move and what we think should work. But this is going to evolve over time. So it's going to be as simple as, I think a good coach or a good programmer is someone who can make the necessary adjustments when they need to and know that they're making them, why they're making them.
Yeah.
And I think also if we talk about coaching, it comes down to, that communication side, I think is the biggest part of we have the empathetic side, and understanding people. And then we have the proper sports coaching, right? Like getting in someone's head and, we need that little bit of a push sometimes.
Understanding where that person is at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with coaching, I mean, obviously coaching and programming go hand in hand, right? But with coaching, it's what Steve said. You need to understand the person in front of you and why they've come to you in the first place. Some people will value understanding their program, and some people will value the programming aspect of what we're delivering them. But some athletes also value the relationships that you build with them as your coach-athlete relationship. And as that evolves over time, that relationship obviously evolves. You guys have been coaching and together for a while, so you guys would understand each other inside type thing. I think if coaches, there's a lot of coaches, not a lot of, sorry, I don't want to say that word. I think there can be a mismatch between relationships sometimes. The athlete may come to a coach and expect a coach, whereas that coach knows that they're not really a coach. They just specialize in programming. And that's where I think sometimes there is a mismatch. But when we're talking, every athlete is still a human being, right? No matter where they're at in their road towards their goals. So as a coach, understanding where that athlete is as a human being helps us to be able to communicate, and then also dissociating helps us to program.
Yeah, for sure. Like coaches are not just spreadsheets, right? There's so much more to the human being in front of us that allows us to get them to reach their goals. Because you can give that spreadsheet to two different people and one's going to completely misapply it. And it requires that communication. It requires motivational tactics. So it's not just, here you go, follow this and you should be good.
No, it doesn't. It's not.
Yeah, you go, Kelly.
We see that at the end of preps every time.
Yeah.
You've got two spreadsheets and you give it to the same person, two different people, and one person will excel with it and the other person won't. And 9 times out of 10, the other person doesn't excel out of it because they needed a coach to help them through that last little bit, not a spreadsheet to follow.
Yeah, for sure. And on the other side is the person that is following it really well, they might be overthinking it and then they'll pull themselves back because they're not so sure of themselves. Because if you were to
Yeah.
self-coach or just follow a program by yourself, it's very
Mm.
easy to get caught up in the trap of like, is this working? Who do I have to
Mm.
verify this for myself aside from myself? So having that objective person to look at it and say, you're good, just keep going is extremely beneficial.
Oh, literally have said you're good, just keep going in the last 2 weeks before the Perth Cup 1,000 times.
How's it been with me, Steve? Am I very similar?
You and I have worked together for a long time. You know we know where each other is at. You say leave it there. I say, do you want to leave it there? And you say less.
Well, then that's you knowing as a coach how Danny responds to the communication that you provide him. Whereas other people, if you say that, do you want to leave it there? Other people go, yep.
Yeah. I know exactly right. I've also got some athletes who have said to me, hey, I want to do this because I have my next heavy session of this on like the next day or something. So I'm going to pull this back, and I have to respond and be like, no, please don't do that, because you're butchering the lift that you're trying to pull back. You're essentially tapering it the week before into your last heavy session, not onto the platform.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where a coach comes in with understanding the programming part. If you're looking at, a coach's role within programming, to be able to explain that to their athletes so they know that, and the athlete needs to be able to know to reach out to the coach, because that's the coach's job in those last couple of weeks to explain, hey, I need you to hit this number, or don't, this is where I need you to push, because you're going to go through this last little bit, and it's okay to feel dog shit. It's all right.
Yeah, you're supposed to. You're not peaking properly if you feel spectacular, right? If you feel spectacular in a competition prep, which is probably like the only part that may be a little bit hard in powerlifting, then it's you're essentially like you're taking it too easy, and you probably will feel terrible on the platform. You're not going to feel spectacular as you did in training, because you're essentially going to put yourself in a position to not be able to kind of taper and super compensate.
Yeah. I think you go.
That's the point where that motivational side comes out as a coach, right? Like that's like the final 3 or 2 weeks or 1 week out is when you need to start going like, I need you to push through and get this in, right? Like other than that, it's usually training's very cruisy, essentially.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Danny? What's the difference between coaching and just the programming? Because you've got coaches who do specialize in programming, and they may not specialize in some of the softer skills of being a coach. But what do you, as a coach, what do you think they look like in two different things?
I think it's very much so about communication, knowing the person in front of you, like you guys have said, and trying to get the best out of that person. So knowing the way that someone might respond is like, all right, well, how can you probe and get at them to make sure that they come out with the right outcome, or at least equip them with the right decision making? Because sometimes we need to remember that not everyone comes into this sport as athletes and know how to push at the times that they need to, how to work through difficult situations. And for us as coaches in a sport, that's the tools that we need to be teaching people, right? Because you can put on paper a single at 9 and you know that that's going to be quite difficult, but someone might be too scared to approach that and they can, pull out short. And you as a coach need to be able to push people and also pull people back.
Yeah.
People that are athletes and do want to push, trying to get them to remember like the long-term goal as well. So I think about it in terms of scale. When people get too caught up in the moment, learning how to pull people back and remember the greater perspective, but also people that, like Steve said, who try to take the seat of the coach and don't be athletes themselves, I think is very important for you to remind them that they're the ones in the driver's seat and they're the ones that are going to dictate their outcome.
100%.
Yeah.
What about the mental game stuff as a coach?
So
I think okay.
One thing that I will touch on, because I've had this conversation with people quite recently is like mental game stuff with powerlifting is, we're lifting a barbell, right?
Yeah.
Three different ways. So it's not hard. Okay. And I think a lot of people come into this sport and they like to call themselves athletes, but they don't understand what athletes actually go through. Like if we're talking, if we talk about some of the best sporting athletes in the world, the all-time greats in their specific sport, we talk, we'll touch on basketball. We got Kobe, MJ, the things that they've done and they put themselves through, like where that compares to putting yourself through a competition prep in powerlifting. Like think about that on a scale, right? Like we don't really push that hard, right? It's powerlifting. It's not, you're not doing it in front of thousands of people. You're doing it alone as well. You don't have other people that you got around you that you need to kind of perform for. You don't need to do, you just got to go out and do what you got to do. And it's like that whole prep leading up to that is just kind of I guess doing it. It's just showing up and doing it, and then you'll be able to express what you need to express when it's time. So it's like from a mental aspect, I don't want to like shit on powerlifting because I love the sport and I do it, but it's not hard. Okay.
No.
And so when people say it's hard, it's kind of like we just need to give them that push. And it's like once you give someone that push and you just kind of just go, hey, look, I just need you to do this and just trust me, and it's gonna be okay, then usually they can excel really, really well.
I feel like it gets hard when people don't when either coaches or athletes don't see the whole approach. So something's off. So it might be that your recovery is not right, or it might be that you're not attacking one or two sessions a week that you need to attack properly. It might be that you're not foreseeing the future properly with what you want to do with the next block of training. It might be that your load selections need work. That's what makes it hard. And that's not hard to figure out. That's only hard to do because you haven't ticked all the boxes first.
Yeah.
And
Preparation.
that's from an athlete.
And you're expecting results. Well, it's also from a coach too, because a coach is an educator, right? We're a mentor, and if the person comes to us and they're asking a question, why do I feel this, or why can't I get this? We don't have the answers, but we need to guide them towards the answers. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, that's where I was going. Like that's the athlete has that point of view, right? They have that.
Yeah.
They're not approaching this in a particular manner, or they're not approaching it effectively, or they're not attacking that session, or they're not treating that block the way that block's meant to be treated. 9 times out of 10, that's because they haven't communicated that with the coach, or the coach hasn't communicated that with them, that's the goal.
Or they're not listening. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if we have I've had this before. I've said to people, we're going into this block. I don't expect you to PR. It's not my goal. My goal is to establish this baseline. So, you can eventually get to the next block, and we can surpass that by more than what we would have done if we just rolled through and went for PRs this block again.
100%.
Yeah. I think that'll tie very well into buy-in as well. Right. So buy-in is this like crossroads of like the spreadsheet or the program tying directly with what the athlete believes is going to work, as well as what the coach thinks is going to work. And that is a very important place for the coach and the athlete to be at pretty much at all times throughout training, right? Because as soon as you don't have buy-in, like it's a very slippery slope to gaining distrust, and then just spinning your wheels and going nowhere.
Oh, it's happened before. I think it also depends on the buy-in process and of the athlete knowing what they're buying into.
Yeah, for
sure. You know what I mean? So like, the athlete contacting you, obviously, athlete putting in an application to work with you, that it's the athlete needs to know what type of coach you are and the type of athletes that you work with to be able to see if you mesh. You get what I mean? So like, and I'm not saying that people need to discount each other with saying that, oh no, I don't work with this type of person, I don't work with that type of person. But we're humans, and humans have strengths and weaknesses, right? So we all have the type of athlete that we do gel with, and the type of athlete that we prefer to work with. And I think it's important that people understand how to establish that baseline really quickly, because otherwise it goes south.
Yeah, for sure.
It really does. Because it's just communication, right? That's all it is.
Yeah, like if you're
Yeah.
not going to gel personality wise with the person in front of you, it's very difficult to then get them to do something that's going to be a long-term process for everyone.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in a way that if, I believe, and this is, I've had chats with Steve about this before. I don't think coaches should be turning athletes away because they don't think that they can work with them. I believe coaches should be establishing their coaching philosophies based off experiences that they've had with athletes that they prefer not to work with.
Yeah,
So
100%.
I'm not a fan of the whole, oh, come and do a session with me on Zoom and we'll see if we work together, work out together, blah blah blah, because you don't know off one Zoom consult.
Yeah, it takes time.
A personality test doesn't tell you everything you need to know about an athlete, but it's important for coaches to establish those philosophies over time of the types of athletes that they not so much work better with from a personality wise, but gel with to get results, because that's our job, right? So I can, because Steve and I have been in this game, and even you, Danny, have been in this game so long, I'm going on 8 years now. I know exactly the type of athlete that I don't work well with, but I often have this persona, and I meet someone and I'll go, no, I'll give them a go. And I think, no, I'm not going to work well with this person. Given 2 months down the track, they're fantastic.
Yeah, so it's still
You know
about
what I
giving
mean?
people a chance.
Yeah, and then it might not be like, I'm a big believer in, if it's gone pretty rocky, to work it out. Go, okay, cool. I'm not really getting what I need from you right now. Can we sit down? Can we figure it out? They might say to me, I'm not really getting what I need from you right now. Okay, let's sit down. Let's have a Zoom. Let's work it out, type thing. And then if it still doesn't work, then it's like, okay, I know someone who could really, really help you. But that doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
It's also like, okay, so when we get the person too, we obviously give them a chance. And that 2 month period that you talked about, where you're like, oh, you weren't really sure, but that they really wanted to work with you, obviously. And then over that kind of 2 month or 8 week period, 10-week period, or whatever it is, until we really start to, get the process rolling, is they've also understood what that you expect from them as their coach. So it might just start with that first 2 to 3 weeks. You could be like, oh no, I've made a mistake here. I may not be able to follow through with this. But at the same time, it's like, you've got to give that person an opportunity to be able to understand what you want from them as an athlete.
Oh, 100%.
Comes down to expectations, right? Because as you've worked with such a large roster of athletes now, you've developed this expectations of what people can go through. And I guess I think that's a big thing as well. Like, having such a large spectrum of lifters, both from like beginner, intermediate, advanced, as a coach, we need to have that sort of flexibility to be able to work with a large range of people at all times, right? Because
100%.
like you said, going on 8 years, Kelly, like, it doesn't mean that as you progress, you start working exclusively with just elite athletes, right?
Not
It's
at all.
within the bucket,
Not at all.
but you've realized like you need some baseline of expectation of what's expected on the athlete to be able to get results.
Yeah, I think my expectations with the more high-end athletes I do work with, my expectations have changed in terms of, I do ask athletes when I speak to them, what are your goals and what do you expect from me? Because my communication doesn't lack, but it's changed. It's evolved over time in terms of, I know what I want out of a situation. I know how to explain that to someone. But it's more of I'm getting better at setting those expectations early, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is good, because I think if you were to, you touch on like the athletes or the clients that you've worked with where that you just don't gel, like, I had that as well, right? It's just like, we just can't do it. And we try and work our way through it, but it's like, if you were to have, let's say 10 of these athletes that over this 8-year period that you just don't gel with, like, this will create like burnout, right? Because it is such hard work, because you just can't, you're not as passionate about it. It's really hard to do. Like, it makes the job really hard. And it's like working with that many people, and they are people, like we said earlier, that you're working with, it can create some sort of burnout. We get really, really tired, and then it's like, can almost dread receiving messages or videos from these people sometimes, and it's like,
Yes.
not having a great day. I don't want to deal with this right now. So it's like, as a coach, you need to understand that you can't just keep taking someone's money for the sake of it, right?
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying it yourself, because they're probably not enjoying it on their end as well, because you're not giving them the best possible service that you can provide.
Yeah, exactly. No one comes into powerlifting to make money at the start, right? Like it's
Yeah.
come as a byproduct, and starting it came out of love. I'm gonna assume out of all of us here, right? And so
100%.
remembering that's what creates great service is going to lead to great coaching, and then great programming as
Yeah.
well as an umbrella.
Oh, that's a whole nother discussion on business though, with talking about the industry now with the typical online coach with 20 athletes who does it because they get to train 5 hours a day. You know what I mean? That's a completely different conversation with actually why do you get into the sport to start with? Because at the end of the day, as much as you can say, and this is where my views may differ a little bit, as much as you can say you don't make money out of it, it's a business.
Yep.
It's 100% 100% a business. And I'm not saying business to make money. I'm saying business for a service. So like if and that's where I kind of not get annoyed, but I'm like, why are these response times from coaches so bad if they're trying to provide a service for their athletes, you know, in terms of not getting back to athletes within 2 to 3 weeks, which is what we've heard. We've had that before. So if you're trying to create this relationship of actually being a coach, especially an online coach, and you're not getting back to your athletes for 2 to 3 weeks, man, why are you doing it?
Yeah,
There's no a relationship there.
Yeah, I won't touch on that, but I think like seeing my own lifting and seeing coaching are two things that are of equal priority, right? Like since becoming a coach who's gained a roster, like although my standard of lifting has not dropped, it's like neither can drop too far down to where it's below the expectation of my own and the expectation that I've set and told my lifters, like, you know, if we're going to have this response time and this regularity of updates, that's what I'm sticking to. And that's very important to like building relationships.
Yeah. And if you can't do that, and obviously we're humans as well, it's just being about transparent, you know. Hey, I'm at a wedding this weekend, or hey, I'm just about to compete in Malta. I probably won't get back to you this week, just letting you know.
Yeah, things happen.
Things happen, you know, but
life happens.
Just letting you know that I'm competing in a couple of days, probably won't be checking my messages enough, or I'm handling for the next week. You know, having that transparency, that's how you create relationships, right? Just dropping off the face of the earth and then going, oh, sorry, I'm back. That's when the relationship gets muddled, and that's when you have the problems with the buy-in stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
It's not just like, hey, sorry, I didn't get back to you. It's like sometimes it's like you can create you're creating that relationship with your client by just being honest with them, right? Being raw and being yourself. Just explaining to them how had a situation I couldn't get back to you yesterday. And they will appreciate that if you let them know, rather than just like putting it on the back burner and then just getting back to their videos. Just letting them know if you've told this person that you'll get back to them and your response times is this, and then you don't for a day, but then explain why, they're going to be fine with it.
Yeah, they're just humans.
Yeah. I wanna tie it back to programming and coaching to finish this off. So two types of situations, right? So how might a situation play out with having a good coach and a bad program for an athlete?
Well, it's pretty well known that if an athlete is diligent with their program and there's basic principles of progressive overload, they're going to get stronger.
Yep.
You know, if the buy-in's there and the relationship's there with their coach, then they're going to get stronger to a point, you know. So I think that a good coach not outweighs, but I think you can still get results if you're a good coach and you struggle with programming to a point.
Yeah, it can definitely buffer out the recoverability aspect of a bad program. Yeah.
So good coach, bad programming, I guess, would be like someone that communicates really well,
Yeah.
talks really well. They're on board with everything, but they're
Yeah.
not. They aren't, because like we look at people in two ways, kind of when we're coaching them, right? Well, I do myself. I look at the person, the way they move, and I look at them as a spreadsheet sometimes as well, right? Because I what's on their sheet is what they're doing. So that's where the individualism comes in. So a good coach can communicate well, can help someone be empathetic, provide the motivational talks when they need it, talk them through issues or be there for them and be there constantly for them. But they're not taking into account anything that they're doing through their communication onto what they're putting onto that spreadsheet for them. So that's where it becomes, okay, you're a great coach, but what you've got on this sheet is probably not individual to me. Although I am getting slightly stronger, I'm doing everything as an athlete. I should be getting a little bit stronger if I'm ticking all the boxes a bit faster.
Yeah.
It's
so
likely
they're just not relaying what they're saying or doing and putting it on the program for the person.
Yeah. So a good coach is likely to get more out of any athlete, right? And then more than the program itself. And so how would it play out if you have, say, a quote unquote bad coach and a good program?
I think that goes back to someone that just doesn't communicate well, right?
They can write
write a program, and they have the program they know because they've probably worked with a lot of people, so they've gotten really good at programming and understanding people and different weight classes, leverages, the way someone moves and everything like that. So I have a good program that's going to work for this person, but then that person doesn't hear from them for the whole week.
Yeah, and then you've got the issues with if you don't hear from your coach, then you've got the issues of motivation and intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, and lack of buy-in.
And lack of buy-in, especially when you're working with things like RPE.
Yeah, lack of buy-in and also like understanding that the athlete will then struggle to understand their program, right? Because communication won't be there for the athlete to be able to be like, what is the goal? Unless, this coach could then explain it, but that can also get derailed sometimes and gets forgotten by the athlete. So sometimes we've got to be able to put that back into the athlete's head so they understand the goal of a specific block or mesocycle, or even like done it right down to the microcycle. Like, I don't know, obviously we know that I communicate every day with my athletes, but when something isn't feeling strong on a particular day, I can take note of that during the week, right? If it's someone that I'm not communicating enough frequently enough, then I can't take note of that and I don't know.
You can only assume. You can only assume
hard
progress.
when you have to update and sheet's not updated. There hasn't been any communication in the week. That's when things get hard.
That's when things get really hard.
It's also when progress stalls mid-block or something like that, and then the athlete all of a sudden goes, "Yeah, this day's been feeling shit for weeks," and you're like, "Why don't you tell me? Like, why don't you tell me? That's your job to tell me." Say that, and then I'll look at it. Otherwise, it's like, oh yeah, all I'm looking at, oh yep, going up, looks good, going up, and then all of a sudden it stalls. It's like, yeah, I've just been pushing this, and you're like, fuck. All right, okay, let's start again.
Yeah, I think out of both these situations, though, like if you as an athlete are very autonomous, it kind of buffers out however the coach thinks, right? So if a good coach has done their due diligence and has gotten the athlete to the point where they know how to make the right decisions in the moment when it happens, as well as select the right RPE, take care of their recovery, do all these things, then it kind of buffers out the coach and the coach can then step back and let the athlete do their thing and let the program play out. But if the athlete hasn't gotten to that point and you lack the communication, they'll never reach that point where they're autonomous and the program then can't do its thing. So a good program that's not applied is not a good program.
At the same time, we talk about this communication thing. A good coach, I think, knows when to not over communicate as well. Like I said earlier, with the over technical feedback, and it's like over communicating the program, so then the athlete overthinks the program or something like that. Just explain kind of the basics, or put that puzzle together in pieces and let them kind of figure it out. Actually, we'll never create the autonomy with that athlete.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. And instead of saying, and then instead of going down into the details, saying things like, this day's probably going to feel real strong this week. or
That's important. Yeah.
this day's not gonna feel that strong this week, and that's okay. Instead of
Yeah.
saying, oh, it might feel like RP9. If it feels like RP9, feel like you can maybe drop 5 kilos if you want to, but let me know. Then we'll talk.
Too
Like,
much.
Yeah. Too much.
It's
Yeah,
more
we'll
like
talk then because I'm 100% going to be available at that time.
Yeah, and it's more like, all right, this is your last heavy squat session. You got Perth Cup next week, Danny. This squat session is gonna feel dog shit. Are you ready to go?
If it's
That's true, mate.
RP9, they got to dial it
Ready.
back. Oh, I'm fucking ready.
Don't
But-
dial it back. Let's
I
go.
want to, I want to touch on one more thing as well. Back to what we were talking about with mentors. And Steve, you're very big. Well, you've essentially instilled or given me the permission to think like an athlete, right? So you've taken on this philosophy of taking powerlifting very seriously and essentially footy coaching. So you do the job
Yep.
of programming, and the athlete doesn't have to think about it as much until it becomes a collaborative effort. But then you
Yep.
also let people just push and make sure all these boxes are ticked in, right? And so in terms of psychology, how much do you allow your athletes to, try and take it to the next level and have this sense of like competitiveness? Do you instill that in your athletes, or is that something they come to you with?
I think they come to me with it and then they build it up even more over time. So it almost becomes as like a dormant kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's there, like even yourself, Danny, like I believe you had it initially, but it was dormant. It wasn't exposed as it is now. So it's like I've let it just come out and come more and more, be more exposed and magnified over time. Whereas to start with, I'm not going to say you're soft because you've always been a good athlete, but you weren't who you are today in terms of the competitiveness and the willingness to win and just wanting to win so bad, which I think has happened over time. And so I believe like it depends on the individual, right? I don't push this on anyone, but like I did say earlier, like if you come and you say you want to call yourself an athlete,
athlete one.
Then there's athlete things that you got to do, right?
Yeah.
Because powerlifting is one of those sports where you can come into it and it's so easy. You buy a soft suit, you buy some gear, you can get on the platform and you can call yourself an athlete. But then it's like, but do you really want to be that athlete that takes it serious? Because that's what athletes do, right? They're not just people that they go to the gym and they train and then they showcase that in front of a few people on a particular weekend of the year. There's also that competitiveness and that drive to want to be the best, because that's what athletes speaking in at a very high level in sport are. That's what they do. They want to be the best. They're trying to get to the top level. They're trying to win championships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I'm not an athlete, so I can't lead by example with that, but I do lead by example with my work ethic. And my work ethic comes back to the communication that I provide with my athletes and the expectations that I lay down. So for me, if I don't respond to my athletes well, or my communication levels go down, then I expect theirs to go down because they're not watching me perform on Instagram either. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's about keeping the expectations really high all the time, and then not saying that you have to train RPE9 every week and get everything done, but letting them know that, and constantly reminding them that, if they choose to be high level or want to get to high level, they'll need to treat themselves as high level all of the time. And that's just, it depends. And if they want to have the processes of, oh, this week I only got this done, or I didn't get this done, or, or I don't see the trends in my training, or I'm not quite understanding, and they don't reach out to me with it, I'm going to say, well, you haven't set those expectations to me. So if you want to know those expectations of XYZ of your program and how we can get you better results, reach out and work with me on that, or I can't do much for you.
Yeah. Like I think the hardest part is getting the athlete that you're at now to the next level, whether that's beginner to intermediate to like advanced, because they have to take on these new habits. They have to become uncomfortable with the way they're currently thinking and essentially evolve. But as coaches, that's the thing that we need to help the athletes with. You go, Kelly?
Yeah, I had a young athlete not long ago say to me, Kelly, you really taught me how to be an athlete. And I was hadn't really thought about how I do that. And then I sat back and went, okay, yeah, this is how I'm doing that with these people, is setting my expectations and giving them the education of what they can expect and what they should expect in this block of training. And that helps them with their buy-in. And then they see that and then they go, oh, okay. So, and then if they're having a shit training session, I'm going to say straight away, you need to get more food in, man, more sleep in, more water in, and you'll perform better. And then they do that and they go, oh, okay, this is how I do it. Whereas no one said that to them before.
Yeah, it's like teaching them how to be an athlete, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy.
It's crazy to people like you two, but it's not crazy to other people because it doesn't come naturally. Like you two are very regimented in your outlooks on life and I am too. But with my work ethic, some people aren't, and some people can't get their shit together. And you have to teach them how to drink 2 liters of water before you do your squats.
Yeah, I think you could also tie into like how people say like, I'll never work with someone who's not an athlete or something. Like, but if we take yourself for example, Kelly, right? You're someone who's very competitive in a business manner, right? So you have that competitive edge. You know what it's about to be or like to be competitive. It's not just, you don't have to do it in sports. Competitiveness is a mindset.
It's a
right?
mindset.
And you have that mindset. And so you can take that and you build that onto your athletes by teaching them because of what you've done as a businessman or businesswoman.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, I say to myself, I think I want to win more than you want to win.
Yeah.
So I want to win this more than you do, man.
Yeah.
I think there's like being competitive mentally wise is very much, it's a habit. Like once you start thinking and having these thought patterns of like, I want to win, I need to be this prepared for this session, it just compounds and over time it evolves.
And you get better at it. Like I used to in business and stuff, I think this is with growing and evolving the team. Even when Steve first started, if we weren't growing at a rate that I wanted to, I'll be like, are we not doing enough? Am I not doing enough? Is what we're doing not good enough? And athletes are very similar, right? If they're not getting strong at the level they think they should, it's like they go, am I not doing enough? What's wrong? It feels heavy and I don't know why. When in reality, it's because even with business, we haven't improved our systems. We haven't ticked off the boxes. Some of our coaches aren't not doing a good enough job, but there's leaking in the whole of the system. It's the same as athletes. If things start feeling rough, something's leaking.
Yeah.
So it's the same mindset. So it's kind of like, for me, working through that mindset in a business perspective has helped me to actually communicate what I need from athletes better, because I'm going through it too, just with something else.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think, to bring it back, I think it is very helpful to know that the mindset of being competitive is coachable. Like it's a learned skill to want to be able to go to the next level, and you can change your behavior depending on who you work with. And a good coach can very much accelerate that much more than a spreadsheet can. If you have drink 2 liters on the spreadsheet, it's not going to do anything. but if the way that you talk to someone, like, hey, if you don't drink 2 liters, your squat's going to feel like shit. Like it'll change things.
Yeah,
ASAP.
definitely.
ASAP.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'll tie things off today. Thanks, guys. And we will see you all in the next roundtable.
No worries.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Bye. I don't know where the stop record button is.